When football clubs buy players, the general assumption is that they're spending money that they already have. In fact, this is not always the case. Some clubs do have huge cash reserves, but a surprising number don't. So what do? Well, that's where football's secret credit card comes in handy. You know what it's like. Sometimes you want to buy something that you can't afford. A big TV, a games console, a season ticket. You want it now. Perhaps it's something that won't be available in 6 months. So instead of using cash or saving up, you put it on a credit card and pay off the balance over the long term with future income. Well, football clubs increasingly think in the same way, or have to. In the 2 transfer windows in the 22-23 season, Premier League clubs cumulatively spent around £2.8 billion. This was 47% higher than the previous highest spend in a single season, which was £1.9 billion in the 17-18 season. Such inflation means that an already competitive market becomes almost unaffordable for some clubs. Add to this the enormous income gap between the Premier League and the Championship, and the financial cost of relegation is too high. Clubs can't afford to stay passive in the Premier League. Not investing to strengthen the squad can significantly damage future earning potential. It means that clubs have to find a way to afford players and be financially competitive in an increasingly expensive market. Some clubs have wealthy owners and/or benefactors to enable this, while others turn to alternate forms of funding. This is where financing companies are involved. In addition to their squad, clubs also need to invest in commercial assets such as stadiums. Having a large stadium can drive enormous revenue and cash generation over multiple years, and is usually a sensible financial decision longer term if the upfront outlay can be funded. This is especially true at the largest scale at the very biggest clubs in Europe, and also across the Premier League where massive income generation enables greater spending power. Banks and financial institutions are wary of lending to football clubs. Football clubs are mostly loss-making enterprises, and the collateral put up for large-scale loans or credit facilities, such as a stadium or a training facility, are of limited use to banks as independent assets. What would a bank do by seizing control of a football stadium if the football club has defaulted on loans? Some football clubs own hotels, conference facilities, and other commercial assets which have value. But really, a football club's most valuable assets are the stadium and the playing squad, and both of these are not useful to banks or financial institutions. This means football clubs generally find it challenging to get support from banks when they want to raise money. Instead, financing companies can provide football clubs with much needed cash and liquidity, usually in exchange for a guaranteed share of future broadcasting income or income from future player sales. It is funding today's expenditure with tomorrow's guaranteed income, in the hope that this expenditure will help generate even more guaranteed income. Ultimately, it is a gamble that can go wrong, badly if the football club suffers a financial catastrophe such as relegation. That said, these companies have enabled some high-profile transactions and are a big part of how football clubs operate today. 23 Capital, for example, were involved in the transfers of Antoine Griezmann to Barcelona and Joao Felix to Atletico Madrid. According to their website, they have helped close to over 110 transactions and deployed and advised capital in excess of $3.5 billion. The adoption of such services is also high in the Premier League. According to law firm Farah & Co., more than 40% of Premier League clubs immediately prior to the pandemic had raised funds against future broadcast revenues, doubling in 3 years, while a fifth had raised funds against future transfer income, up from 14% 3 years earlier. And it's understandable why. In the words of 23 Capital's CEO Jason Traub, if you think around the principles of a transfer, you have the selling club who want the money up front, and why not? And you have a buying club who, for a whole range of reasons, want to defer the payment. We often get involved and can say, we can solve both your needs. Help one have their money up front, and help the other defer over 5 years. All you need to negotiate is the cost of the finance. And the cost of the finance makes it economically very attractive. Transfer fees are expected to keep growing, as will the need for funding, meaning that football clubs are increasingly likely to work with such companies. However, the opportunity to do so will become more financially competitive as more lenders enter the space. Australian lender Macquarie recently made a credit facility available to Burnley, while challenger banks have also entered the market. Technology billionaire Michael Dell's personal investment vehicle, MSD Partners, is another new entrant. Close Brothers Merchant Bank has struck several deals in Scottish football since the pandemic. On its company website, New Century Finance claims to have completed transactions with 60 different clubs across the UK, Europe, and South America. Most likely it's a trend which is here to stay. As long as football clubs are ambitious and feel the need to keep up with their rivals, they will be finding a way to spend.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.